The airport was crowded with travelers rushing to their gates. Luggage wheels clattered across the tiles, announcements echoed overhead, and flight attendants smiled politely at the long line of passengers waiting to board. Among them was Marcus King, a tall young black man in his mid-20s. He wore casual jeans, a hoodie, and wireless headphones around his neck. To most people, he looked like just another traveler, but Marcus wasn't ordinary. He was the only son of Robert King, one of the most successful black billionaires in America. Marcus didn't flaunt his wealth. He never wanted to be treated differently. He just wanted to live like everyone else. He handed over his first-class ticket, nodded politely, and stepped onto the plane. But as he walked down the aisle, a woman sitting in the front row, Karen Whitmore, a wealthy socialite with blonde hair and a diamond necklace, narrowed her eyes. Karen whispered loudly to the flight attendant, "Excuse me, why is he in first class? Are you sure this isn't a mistake?" The attendant frowned. "His ticket is valid, ma'am." Karen huffed. "Well, I've been flying this airline for years, and I've never seen people like him up here. It's inappropriate." Passengers shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Marcus heard it. He clenched his jaw but stayed calm, sliding into his seat. Racism doesn't always roar like thunder. Sometimes it comes as a whisper, a sideways glance, or a smug question asked loud enough for everyone to hear. What Karen didn't know was that her cruel words were the beginning of a storm about to shake this entire flight. The plane reached cruising altitude. Drinks were served, conversations hummed softly. Marcus put on his headphones, trying to ignore the earlier insult, but Karen wasn't done. She leaned across the aisle, her voice dripping with venom. "Hey, you! Why don't you move to the back where you belong? First class isn't for freeloaders." Marcus pulled off his headphones, looking at her calmly. "Ma'am, I paid for my ticket, just like you." Karen scoffed. "Yeah, right. Probably using someone else's money. People like you don't belong up here." The cabin grew silent. A businessman muttered under his breath, "Lady, just leave him alone." But Karen's face twisted with rage. Without warning, she raised her hand. Smack! Her palm struck Marcus across the face. The sound echoed through the quiet cabin. Passengers gasped. Someone shouted, "Did she just slap him?" Phones shot up. Everyone started recording. Marcus sat frozen, shocked but composed. His cheek burned, but his dignity stood firm. The flight attendant rushed forward. "Ma'am, that's assault!" Karen snapped back. "He deserved it. These people always act like they're entitled. There are blows that land on skin, and there are blows that land on history." That slap wasn't just aimed at Marcus. It was aimed at every barrier, every scar, every story of injustice carried for generations. But Karen had no idea. This time, her cruelty had consequences she couldn't escape. Before Karen could gloat any further, two enormous men in black suits stood up from opposite ends of the cabin. Passengers gasped as they made their way forward with sharp, controlled steps. These weren't random travelers. They were Marcus's personal bodyguards, traveling incognito. One leaned close to Karen, his voice cold. "Lady, you just slapped the wrong man." Karen blinked. What do you mean?" "He's just..." The other bodyguard cut her off. "That's Marcus King, son of billionaire Robert King. And you just made the worst mistake of your life." The cabin buzzed with whispers. Phones kept recording. Karen's smug smile vanished as fear crept in. Suddenly, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to an incident on board, we are diverting this flight immediately." Karen jumped up. "No, you can't! I didn't do anything wrong." But no one listened. The bodyguards stood tall beside Marcus, shielding him, while passengers shook their heads at the woman's arrogance. When hate crosses the line, silence can no longer protect it. The slap that Karen thought would humiliate Marcus only exposed her own cruelty to the world. And in the age of cameras, truth spreads faster than lies. The plane screeched against the runway of the nearest airport. Red and blue lights flashed outside. Police officers marched down the aisle. The lead officer looked at Marcus. "Sir, are you okay?" Marcus nodded calmly. "I'm fine. Just tired of dealing with this." The officer turned to Karen. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for assault." Karen's face turned pale. Assault? No, you don't understand. I didn't know who he was. I didn't mean it." But her excuses fell flat. Cold handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Passengers clapped as she was escorted out. Some cheered, others shook their heads in disgust. Excuses may twist, but truth doesn't bend. Karen thought her privilege would shield her. But in that moment, justice walked her down the aisle. Not with applause, but with handcuffs. Waiting at the terminal was none other than Robert King himself. The billionaire's sharp suit and silver hair made his presence impossible to ignore. He rushed to his son, pulling him into a firm embrace. "Marcus, are you all right?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, Dad, just another day." Robert's jaw clenched as he turned to the waiting press. "My son was assaulted on a flight for nothing more than the color of his skin. Money doesn't shield us from hate. Status doesn't erase racism. This is the reality Black Americans face every day, and it has to end." Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. But Marcus raised a hand, his voice steady and raw. "I don't want pity. I don't need fame. I just want people to understand. What happened to me happens to thousands of others who don't have cameras recording. Remember them." The terminal fell silent. Even reporters lowered their microphones. Sometimes the loudest truths don't come from the powerful. They come from the ones who refuse to be broken. Marcus's words carried more weight than billions ever could, because they were born from pain, dignity, and strength. Within days, the video went viral. Every headline screamed the same thing. "Racist woman slaps billionaire's son mid-flight." Karen lost her job, her reputation, and her friends. She became a symbol of disgrace. Meanwhile, Marcus refused the spotlight. Instead, he spent his days at a community center in Atlanta, speaking to kids about resilience. He told them, "People will try to tear you down. They'll try to make you feel small. But your worth doesn't come from their hate. It comes from how you rise." The children listened, eyes wide, hearts full. Hate will always find a way to board the flight. It will carry new faces, new excuses, new disguises. But what matters isn't the storm that rises. It's how we respond. Marcus chose patience over rage, purpose over revenge, dignity over hate. And in doing so, he proved a timeless truth. Dignity will always fly higher than hate.